A silence hangs in the air, a silence so thick you could choke on it. And yet, in that silence, a question burns hotter than a desert sun. Do you believe God is speaking to you? Not in some distant historical sense, not through the roar of a flood or the burning of a bush, but here, in the mundane chaos of your Tuesday afternoon, in the quiet ache of your 3 a.m. insomnia, in the face of a decision that feels like it will define the rest of your life. You nod your head. Yes, you believe in a God who spoke the world into existence. But when the whisper comes for you, do you recognize it? Or have you been waiting for a thunderclap while a still, small voice has been patiently wearing down the walls of your heart? The tragedy of the modern believer is not that God is silent. It is that we have grown deaf, tuning our ears to the frequency of the world and dismissing the frequency of heaven as mere static. To believe He is speaking is the foundation of faith, but to know what He is saying, that is the substance of a life transformed. And He has been speaking. He has left you a letter, not just of ink and paper, but of living, breathing truth, and within it lie 3 specific verses you cannot ignore, not if you want to survive the night, not if you want to walk in the light, not if you want to feel His voice as the very pulse in your veins. These are not suggestions for a better life. They are the coordinates of your soul's true north. The first verse you cannot ignore is Jeremiah 29:11. A verse so familiar it has become a kind of Christian wallpaper, comforting but often unseen in its true power. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for peace and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. You have seen it on coffee mugs and graduation cards, but have you ever truly let it split you open? This verse was not spoken to a people sitting comfortably in pews. It was spoken to exiles, to people whose world had collapsed, to those who had been dragged from their homes and were weeping by the rivers of Babylon. The context is captivity, and in your life there are places of captivity too. Addictions that bind you, regrets that haunt you, grief that imprisons you, a past that holds you hostage. In that moment of utter desolation, God does not promise a way out. He promises a way through. He declares that His plan is not hidden in the wreckage, but is the wreckage itself, being reshaped into a vessel of honor. The believer's mind often seeks to escape pain, but the voice of God in this verse is saying something far more radical. Your pain has a purpose. You are not a random collection of atoms spiraling toward oblivion. You are a carefully crafted story, and the author knows the ending. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the weight of that. Let the anxiety about tomorrow dissolve as you realize that tomorrow is already in His hands. The plans are not for your comfort, but for your character. Not for your ease, but for your eternal weight of glory. When you truly hear this verse as a personal declaration, you stop living like an orphan, scrambling for scraps, and start living like a son or daughter, walking in the inheritance of a Father who has already charted the course. The peace you are searching for is not found in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of the one who holds the plans. The second verse that cuts through the noise is Isaiah 41:10, a surgical strike against the paralysis of fear. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Notice the architecture of this divine promise. It does not begin with a command to be brave, but with a revelation of presence. The human heart is a terrified thing, always scanning the horizon for threats, always replaying the failures of yesterday, always projecting the catastrophes of tomorrow. It is a factory of fear, producing anxiety at an astonishing rate. And into this factory, God walks and pulls the main breaker. He does not say, "Figure it out," or "Try harder." He says, "I am with you." The presence is the solution to the panic. The psychology of the believer must shift from a mindset of self-sufficiency to one of divine dependency. You are not strong enough, and you are never meant to be. The strength comes from outside of you, from a righteous right hand that holds the universe together. When you feel the ground giving way beneath you, when the diagnosis comes back grim, when the relationship crumbles, when the bank account dwindles, this verse is not a platitude. It is a lifeline. It is the voice of the Almighty speaking directly to the trembling child within you. The phrase, "I will uphold you," paints a picture of a hand cupped beneath you, preventing the fall. You may feel the descent, you may feel the wind rushing past, but you will never hit the bottom because His hand is there. Let that truth sink deep into the marrow of your bones. The next time fear whispers its lies, you have permission to stand on this rock and declare that dismay has no dominion over you. You are not alone in the valley. The shepherd is there, and his rod and his staff, they comfort you. This is not wishful thinking. This is the spoken word of God, and it is as solid as the throne of heaven. Your part is simply to receive it, to let it become the lens through which you view every storm. The third verse, the one that acts as a mirror for the soul, is Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. This is the verse that separates the casual reader from the devoted disciple, because it demands a radical trust in the sovereignty of a good God. It does not say that all things are good, for the world is broken and evil is real. It does not say that you will understand all things, for your perspective is finite and clouded by tears. It says that God works in all things. He is the master weaver, and even the dark, tangled threads of betrayal, loss, and failure are being woven into a tapestry of breathtaking beauty that you will only see from the other side. The human mind craves linear explanations. It wants a clear path from A to B. But God often writes in cursive, and from your vantage point, it looks like a meaningless scribble. Joseph understood this. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, imprisoned for years, none of it was good. But God worked in it, and Joseph could finally say to his brothers, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." This is the maturity of faith that this verse calls you into. It is the settled conviction that your story is not a tragedy, even when it reads like one. It is the quiet confidence that the architect of the universe is building something eternal with the broken bricks of your life. So, the unanswered prayer, the closed door, the painful goodbye, these are not signs of His absence, but raw materials for His masterpiece. To believe this verse is to stop fighting your life and start cooperating with the artist. It is to surrender the right to understand in exchange for the peace of being held. Let this truth reframe your pain today. Nothing is wasted. Not one tear, not one sleepless night, not one shattered dream. He is working even now, even here, in the silence, in the struggle, for your ultimate good and His eternal glory. Now, you must ask yourself the question that will determine everything. What are you going to do with these words? You have heard them. Perhaps you have even felt a stirring in your chest, a warmth that feels like recognition. But hearing is not enough. The demons hear and believe, and they shudder. The difference between a life that merely acknowledges God and a life that is anchored in Him is action. James tells you to be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. The deception is this: thinking that intellectual assent is the same as living faith. You can recite Jeremiah 29:11 in your sleep, but do you actually live as if your future is secure? You can quote Isaiah 41:10 to a friend, but when your own knees buckle, do you reach for the bottle or the hand of God? You can post Romans 8:28 on social media, but in the quiet of your heart, do you still harbor bitterness against the very circumstances He is using to shape you? The voice of God is not just for comfort. It is for transformation. It is a sword that cuts to the division of soul and spirit, discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Let it cut today. Let these 3 verses become not just memorized lines, but the operating system of your entire being. Let them crowd out the lies of the enemy that you are alone, that you are weak, that your life is a wreck. You are none of those things. You are a beloved child, held by a strong hand, woven into a glorious purpose. The silence you feared was never empty. It was full of His presence, waiting for you to stop talking long enough to listen. So, what now? Will you walk away unchanged, or will you kneel right where you are and let these truths plant themselves like seeds in the soil of your heart? The choice is yours, and it is the only one that matters. If this message has stirred something in you, if you feel that whisper becoming a voice, then do not let this moment pass. It is time to stop wandering and start walking with purpose. Subscribe to Following Jesus Daily. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a word of encouragement, a dose of truth, or a call to deeper faith. Join this community of believers who are committed to not just hearing the word, but living it out, one day at a time. Together, we will learn to recognize His voice in the chaos, to stand on His promises in the storm, and to follow Jesus, not just on Sunday, but every single day. The journey is just beginning, and you are not meant to walk it alone. Click subscribe, become part of the family, and let's follow Him together.